Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We're back in the Rookery Pub on Clapham Common. Zach Jalab's here, Christopher Hamill's here. I like this vintage Celtic number. What year are we talking here?
Oh wow, throw me under the bus here. I reckon early noughties. I'm going to go 2004.
It's a sexy top. That is a sexy
It's
top.
lovely.
And
Silver and green.
he's coming.
He loves this. He's milking it far too
Yeah, you're right.
much.
Actually, you're fucking right.
Get another overshirt. Grow up.
You do wear that a lot, but I do think it suits you. It's a nice tone, mate.
Cheers, lads.
Goes with your skin tone really well.
This will be forever known as the Loftus Cheek overcoat now, because that's what you interviewed him in, right?
Yeah, indeed. That video should be out next week, hopefully. He's a very nice guy. Very, very nice.
Looking forward to watching that.
Bloke.
Yeah, looking forward to watching that. Right, anyway, this week's episode of Sunday Vibes is brought to you by Manscaped. That's right, they're back on Sunday Vibes. Come on, the Manscaped gang. And ahead of Black Friday, we are bringing you an early doors offer, 20% off all Manscaped products. Look at that. Missed. That's probably got on the camera lens now. But nevertheless, 20% off all products and free shipping using the code FootballDaily20. That is a very good deal. And Jalab, tell them about this new performance package they've released.
Yes, the Manscaped Perfect Package 4.0. The
performance package. Not perfect, although it is perfect too.
Well, Perfect Package 4.0 is what it's called.
Is
the
it?
Performance Package 4.0 is the balls. Okay, you see what I did there?
Yeah, I do actually.
Thank you very much.
You did your best, sir.
The hygiene bundle includes the Lawnmower 4.0, Weed Whacker, Boxers, Travel Kit, and liquid formulations.
The hygiene bundle doesn't sound very sexy, does it?
No.
The hygiene bundle.
Liquid formulations, though.
Yeah, this is a liquid formulation. I mean, that sounds like a little bit rogue, doesn't it? a bit like mysterious. But Joe has bought the foot duster with it.
I have. Because certain members of this team's feet can stink. And I'm not pointing any fingers to Doogie behind the camera, but honestly, when he takes that old pair of Sambas off...
the Dragon Masters.
Jesus Christ!
The Dragon Masters come off.
Honestly...
They don't stink, they're just rank.
Yeah.
They don't stink, they're just rank.
He confessed before shooting that he's got hobbit feet. He's got terrible feet. My feet, angelic, don't do enough hard work, not enough manual labour. But my girlfriend's, when she gets back from work, been on her feet all day, they stink. So I give her a little spritzer
That
with the
smells
foot
good.
duster.
It does smell really, really nice.
Yeah, I use Manscaped on my girlfriend.
Yeah, I respect it because that does smell really nice. And if you want to get your hands on any of those products, including the Perfect Package 4.0, use the code FootballDaily20 to get 20% off all Manscaped products and free shipping. It is well worth it. Right, let me load up my phone because I forgot my iPad, and today's topic is an absolute blockbuster one. We had so many people ask us about Stevie G. Tidge on Twitter says Gerrard to Villa. Ilan also says how will Eddie Howe do at Newcastle. So we thought we'd combine all of
it's a
these
shame
sort
Pat's
of
not here.
new
We could get into a proper argument
he
about
was
it.
here last time.
He was here.
Still going on anyhow.
He's still ranting. There's a lot of questions here about new managers, and I think Alvin summed it up quite well. How will the newly appointed managers do in the Prem with their respective clubs? So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at the newly appointed managers, because there's already been 4 so far this season. There's about to be a 5th as well, so we might have a little look at Frank Lampard and Dean Smith's prospective takeover at Norwich. And we'll also do a little bit of analysis on the managers that have newly come into the Prem.
Yeah.
So, Patrick Vieira, Bruno Lage, etc. But there's only one place to start. Thousands of people chatting about bloody Gerrard. Let's add our 2 penneth, because we've already chatted a little bit about it on the pod, right?
Yeah, we did. I think we also kind of on it a little bit on the pod as well. I think you weren't the biggest fan of it, considering the fact that Lucien Favre is out there. But I mean, considering the Aston Villa board, in particular, Purslow has worked with Gerrard at Liverpool, it seemed very much that he'd been in talks for a few weeks about it.
Is this jobs for the boys, mate? Is this a job for the boys?
Yeah, I think it probably is. He knows him. He knows him pretty well. As we said, Lucien Favre is out there. If you want a better manager who has better history and has done it.
Ronnie Dyler, sorry to interject, the Celtic manager, who apparently was supposed to be assistant manager to Roy Keane, and Roy Keane didn't want him as assistant manager, so he came in as manager, by the way. Cousin told me that. Thinks he has all the behind the scenes info. Doesn't. Yeah, Ronnie Dyler was chased out of Glasgow with 2 league titles under his arm. And Steven Gerrard has won 1 trophy of the 9 available to him, and people are speaking about him like he's completed Scottish football. That is what I take umbrage with. There was plenty more for him to do at Rangers, i.e. fight off a reinvigorated Celtic under Postecoglou, secure the league again when, Celtic aren't down in the dumps, and progress in European football once more, because didn't qualify for the Champions League this year, got knocked out by Molde, was okay in the Europa League last season, has started the Europa League poorly again this season. So like his credit should be high, and I'm not saying he won't be a very good manager because he has that natural aura about him, doesn't he? That demands players' respect. I mean, that is half the battle. I feel when a new manager comes into the Premier League. But yeah, like I said in the pod, I think there was just better qualified candidates out there. And like you just said, it feels a bit like he's Perslow's man.
Yeah, well he is, isn't he? Like Perslow worked with him at Liverpool, of course. Gary McAllister is assistant at Rangers. He's got previous ties to Villa as well. He was the assistant there when Gerrard Houllier was in charge. I think the club doctor at Rangers was previously the Aston Villa doctor as well. So clearly there's existing relationships. And I do think that goes a long way. I think that goes a long way, especially in that appointment, because if Christian Perslow didn't know Gerrard, would he be going to him to appoint him so rapidly?
Yeah, why was he not considered for Newcastle at all? Really?
Like Lucien Favre is on the market right now.
Ernesto Valverde.
Yeah, Ernesto Valverde is on the market. There's some quite experienced heads. Like Ernesto Valverde is a multiple La Liga title winner at Barcelona. So for Gerrard to be fighting off these sort of names, he's either the prodigal son or that relationship has definitely had a little bit of a swing. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. He might come in and be absolutely shit hot. But it is a risk on Villa's part, I think, because is he an immediate upgrade on Dean Smith?
Exactly. Took the words out of my mouth because, like, is he better placed than Dean Smith
don't know. He might
to get Villa into the top 10, which we assume is Villa's end goal.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially this season.
For this season, maybe in the short to medium term as well. He does come, I guess, Steven Gerrard, with Michael Beale, who is like one of the most highly regarded first-team coaches out there, pretty much, who was doing all the training at Rangers. So he has got a good backroom staff. He has assembled a good backroom staff. I will give Gerrard that. He's surrounded himself with people with high football IQs. But yeah, like, if I'm Dean Smith, I'm thinking this is a little bit of a take here. Expected points to have me ninth last season. Is Steven Gerrard going to deliver better results than ninth? I know they finished 11th, but...
it's a difficult one. It's a very difficult one.
We could as much as we like, but it's done.
I'm not shitting on him. Not shitting on him. Because he might. We simply don't know. We just don't know. It's a risk, isn't it? It's like when Patrick Vieira took over at the start of the season. Everybody was like, "You're shitting on him." We don't know. We didn't know if he was going to be good. At Palace.
My point being, it's done. It's done now. So we should probably look at what, because he's got an unbelievable squad to pick from. Like the quality in the Aston Villa.
I think it's good. I don't think it's unbelievable. I think there are holes
for their level. I think it's very, very good. So I mean, defensively, yes. Defensively, some huge issues, and that's going to be a big part of what he's got to do is be able to coach a defence at Aston Villa, especially with the likes of Tyrone Mings, who I think is okay, but probably not the starting level. I mean, I don't think he should be in the England squad, that's for sure. But his attack and his creative options going forward are really, really good. Ollie Watkins, he can play on that left wing like he did at Rangers. Using a kind of forward on the wide flank to come in, and then obviously we know Bailey has the qualities to do it when he's fit enough. That is, Danny Ings is Premier League proven. I think he can keep going. Buendia started slowly, but we know Buendia is a fantastic footballer, and if he can get them all linking well, McGinn's brilliant. Douglas Luiz is more than likely going to play a 4-3-3 like he did at Rangers. We're using his like overlapping fullbacks and everything, like every modern day manager. If he can get the attack firing and at least somewhat sort out, because that's the biggest issue at the moment, is both ends aren't doing anything, the attack or the defence.
But the forward's a better place to improve than the defence.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest hole that we identified, or the biggest holes we identified in the podcast was they need a lights out defensive midfielder. I recommended Benjamin Andre. If you want to know the rationale for that, go and check out the podcast. And we also said, like, okay, maybe Tyrone Mings, if they're going to use him as a centre half who progresses the ball out of defence, like maybe he is replaceable. If he's just going to use him as a warrior to clear crosses, then fine where he is. But
left back maybe as well.
But he has got a good squad that's capable of challenging for a top half finish. But I mean, do you think he makes any immediate changes to that lineup?
Well, he's got to first.
Like, what's he going to do that Dean Smith wasn't?
Well, he's got to settle on a defensive system first. I think Dean Smith, part of his problem this year, to be honest with you, has been mixing between threes and fours. I think he had the majority of his success at Villa playing that fullback, and to try and shift it into that three system with the inclusion of Axel, it didn't really work for him. And not saying that was his undoing, but certainly didn't add much positively to what was going on there. 18 losses across the course of the calendar year shows you that there are deeper problems necessarily that we don't quite understand, I think. And obviously he had backroom staff issues, didn't he? That Gerrard's not going to have. So if I was a Villa fan, I would be slightly underwhelmed, I think, just because they are really very ambitious owners. We've seen them do some excellent recruitment over the last couple of years with the likes of Emi Martinez, Ollie Watkins. Even this summer, we are pretty satisfied, despite the sale of Jack Grealish. They're so ambitious. It feels like, is Gerrard... It feels more of a risk on Villa's point for me than Gerrard's. I hear people saying online and on Twitter saying, oh, you know, it's such a big risk for Gerrard. If it doesn't go right, he might have scuppered his chances at the Liverpool job. But I think to myself, that's a really negative way of thinking. I think for Steven Gerrard, this is about as good of an opportunity as you're going to get in the Premier League as a stepping stone. And I don't want to call Villa a stepping stone, but when is he ever going to get an opening that's got a budget like this, a squad like this, a stadium and a fan base like this, training facilities that are top level, an academy that's absolutely flying at the moment? Like, this is peak opportunity right now for Gerrard. So huge upside for him. But what's the upside for Villa? Like, the upside for Villa is he might be an exceptional man. He might be a Graham Potter.
And if he is, he'll leave.
Yeah, agreed. He will leave for Liverpool. But in the immediate now, it's a risk for Villa, I think. So I'd be a little bit underwhelmed, but nevertheless, it's kind of exciting, isn't it? Like, I'm excited to see Villa's first game.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting to have Steven Gerrard back, and it's obviously been the cult figure he is as well. Yeah. I mean, I think that you're very much hoping for the downfall of
Here's
Steven
the question
Gerrard.
that I want to ask you then. Is joining Villa, who are currently, and they won't be over the course of the season, but currently in a relegation sort of position, relegation threatened position, is that a bigger job than Rangers?
Rangers are a bigger club than Aston Villa, and Aston Villa is steeped in history as well. But I'm talking about on a global stage, on a national stage, maybe a little bit more similar.
Because Villa do have European Cups to the name.
I think what has brought his Rangers tenure to a close was the fact that they need £7.5 more by the end of the season in order to, continue operations as is. So this is a Rangers team that have spent £30 million in the last 3 summers, and they really doubled down on, like, they didn't sell Morelos in order to snatch the 10th title away from Celtic, and it's come at a cost. They are like in a little bit of financial turmoil again, and Steven Gerrard wasn't able to spend in the summer, wasn't promised any funds for January. So I think I can sympathise with his, if he's thinking I've taken this Rangers side as far as I can go under the current economic circumstances. But I will never say that a team maybe outside the top 6 is a bigger job than Celtic or Rangers.
Okay.
It might be a more challenging one, but it's not bigger.
All right. Anything else to add on Stevie G before we move on to the next new candidate in a role?
I wish him the best of luck, mate. I wish him the best of luck, just to spite Hammond.
Yeah, I can't wait. I like having these little vested interests in the Premier League. Now I want to see Villa get battered every week.
Oh, wow.
Someone tweeted...
I actually hope he does quite well. I'd like to see him do well.
Someone tweeted that now Leicester versus Aston Villa, I think it might have been a Celtic Rangers fan, it's called El Ratico. Both left the clubs in the lurch like midway through the season. I love that.
Good. Let's move on to the next one then. And this is Eddie Howe, who has been officially confirmed as Newcastle manager. Of course, taking over from Steve Bruce. Now, we've had reservations about Eddie Howe in the past, haven't we? We haven't necessarily been on the Eddie Howe hype train as much as some more public pundits have been, and rightly so. Some people absolutely love Eddie Howe, and he did do a fantastic job at Bournemouth. He took over in 2012, League One for the Prem. Yeah. You can't deny that.
Miracle,
and certainly played some attractive football. Well. Certainly played some attractive football, didn't he? It's hard to deny. But our reservation with Eddie Howe, I think, is Football Daily, was always the defensive unit.
Yeah.
His coaching of a defensive unit at Bournemouth was one of... I mean, that Bournemouth backline throughout the 5 seasons in the Prem was one of the worst backlines the Prem's ever seen across that longer period.
In terms of goals conceded, or do you mean personnel?
I mean, in terms of goals conceded, I've got it down here. In the first season he came, they conceded 67, which was the 19th best in the league. Then he conceded 67, which was the 17th. Then he jumped, obviously, up to 61 goals conceded, which was the 17th. Then he conceded 70, which was the 18th. And then he conceded 65, which was the 18th. So at Bournemouth, the numbers were worrying. They were troublesome. At Newcastle, they're currently on course to concede 82 goals this season.
Quality.
At the current rate. They've conceded 24 goals in 11 games at over 2.2 goals per 90. So
it's not even the worst in the league. I think Norwich are conceding 2.5 at the minute.
They're right, Norwich are. But we're lining up one of...
Yeah, you're saying...
A porous defensive coach with a defence that's a shambles right now. Is that a good fit?
Well, we could say it can't get any worse than the current output. Yeah, I mean, what the bandwidth I give Eddie Howe when it comes to like discussing how many goals they conceded during his Premier League tenure was that he largely kept. I think it was also an issue of recruitment. He largely kept the same personnel that he inherited when he took over at Bournemouth in League One, right? Yeah, Simon Francis, was it Daniels,
but who's he going to be able to get in? Like in January, like the personnel now is
arguably the exact same.
Is it better than that Bournemouth one?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Do you think?
This is a very similar personnel. When Rafa Benitez was there, like I don't think Newcastle conceded over 1.3 goals per game for those 2 seasons.
But he's an excellent
in the Premier League.
Coach.
Yeah, which just shows you there's better coaching can get more out of these players, and he. So I think there is improvement to be had, and with this current Newcastle squad, I also feel for the defence in that none of the ball is kept further up the pitch. Like their ball retention in midfield is non-existent, and their forward players are given a license to run and like try and take on their man, but that often leads to the ball coming back very quickly, right? So they are under the cosh, is what I'm saying. So I agree it's not the strongest defensive unit, but I can see how improving it. Maybe not dramatically. It'd be interesting.
It can't get any worse, surely. It physically can't get any worse.
Well, the other thing as well with Eddie Howe is like, and this doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. However, he has supposedly he's been out in Spain watching Diego Simeone, studying Diego Simeone. I think he also spent a bit of time at Rayo Valladolid as well.
Well, it does. That obviously does mean stuff. So fair play to him for doing that.
I mean, the issue so far we've not seen.
Valladolid?
Well, the issue is we haven't seen whether that actually has made an impact just yet. We will see over the course of this season. And I mean, obviously, if you're going to study a defensive coach, Diego Simeone is probably the best in the world to do that.
But it shows a bit of humility.
Yes, and he also understands. He understands where his issue is and what he can do.
Not that old phrase, but he is obviously a student of the game. Like he's talked about multiple times in press appearances, going away and studying and improving and looking what other coaches are doing. And it doesn't seem like he's stuck in. So he probably will improve the defence that's being put out there now. But is that enough? Even if you drop, like they're conceding, let's say they're on course at the moment to concede 82. Let's say he saves them 15 goals, and that would be a real significant change. We're still looking at 67 goals being conceded, which is peak Eddie Howe numbers at Bournemouth. It's pretty much the average he conceded across the course of his tenure there in the Premier League. I think 67 goals conceded sends you down.
Maybe not this season with Watford, Norwich. Maybe Burnley a little bit tighter, aren't they? But struggle at the other end of the pitch. Like fortunately for them, the saving grace might be that there's some poor teams in the league this season.
That's even if they are those other teams are falling apart. And Burnley always start slowly and put together a few results.
Yeah. And he's also got a few,
that, but it's tight.
I agree.
He's got a few of the players he knows as well from Bournemouth at Newcastle. Obviously, Callum Wilson, hopefully, if he stays fit as well.
And I don't think anybody has any issues with the attack. They're going to score goals.
Yeah, I mean they've got to be doing better than they were on Steve Bruce. Jesus.
Yeah, but Howe is going to do that, sure.
Exactly.
I like the rumours that Emanalo might be taking over as sporting director because when I looked into, I did a video on Eddie Howe being a good fit for Celtic. One of the kind of conclusions I arrived at was he was brilliant at recruiting at a lower level or at championship level, like seriously good. Like no one talks about him as the manager that got like Callum Wilson for I think it was £3 million from Coventry. They talk about him that the manager that spent £24 million on Lerma and £19 million on Dominic Solanke, who's killing it at championship level now. But I need help when it comes to recruiting elite players, and Emanalo is a fantastic conductor, isn't he? So,
God, he is.
And Michael Edwards is
if they can get to January in okay shape and they have a couple defensive targets, like the money's there. Like so,
yeah, it is. No, you're right. And I've seen Michael Edwards linked. Obviously, he's leaving his post as Liverpool sporting director. Is that his official title? In June. So he's really, really good friends with Eddie Howe. Personally, apparently, they're very good pals. So. I wouldn't be surprised to see a pretty big name sporting director take that role. Whether it's Emanalo, I think Edwards is unlikely.
Do you think he'd be there for the long term?
Eddie Howe?
Yeah. Say he keeps them up. He keeps them up this season.
There's no reason why not. It depends what your definition of the long term is.
I'm thinking long term, like for because obviously their ambitions now is to try and do a Manchester City, right? Get to the Champions League.
Do I see Eddie Howe winning the league with Newcastle? No, but could I see him progressing them into the top 10 if he survives this season? It's all about this season, isn't it? It's just about surviving this season. Do anything to survive this season and then try and progress from there. Because if he can and gets the infrastructure and the recruitment right in the summer, then there's no reason he couldn't progress them up the table. Bournemouth did have mid-table finishes under him, so they could get up there, but survival this season is going to be hard. It's seriously hard.
And they had to like really think about the optics of who they're going to employ, because you can't be like an ambitious, like put yourself forward as a really ambitious club and then go and employ Sam Allardyce, but Sam Allardyce might well have kept them up, or guaranteed them staying up. So I think he's probably a good halfway house between something like too ambitious, or bringing someone into the league who's totally green, like Fonseca and an Allardyce, like Eddie Howe.
Nice middle ground for it, keep him there for
palatable.
Yeah. Not my favourite fit. I like Eddie Howe, but I don't think it's necessarily the best fit, the personnel-wise, for him. But nevertheless, he might prove it wrong.
Those players are going to just receive a different level of coaching under him. He's fantastic one-on-one. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to fly through some of the rest of the managers, but I thought it's worth discussing some of the new boys. Claudio Ranieri, obviously taking over at Watford. Yeah, old new boy. Some very mixed results. Obviously lost his first game 5-0, but it was against one of the outstanding teams in Europe. Then staying in Merseyside, beats Everton 5-2, and then 2 1-0 losses. So what do we think of Claudio Ranieri's appointment? Does it keep Watford up? Because at the moment they're not in the relegation zone.
I think it's a good appointment. I don't think it'll keep them up. I like Ranieri. I think he's a very, very experienced coach. He knows this kind of situation very, very well. He's dealt with it a few times, and obviously went down with Fulham the previous season.
That was a shocker, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't done
when they were in this
well.
Did alright at Sampdoria
Exactly.
though. Did okay at Sampdoria. Made them a sort of middle of the pack side.
Yeah, which they generally are in Italy anyway, aren't they?
Yeah.
He's got talented players there. Like Dennis, I think is really, really good. Sarr, we know is really has the potential to be something special as well. I just think maybe defensively they've not necessarily got the
squad.
I think with this there was very little downside to sacking Isco Muñoz, because he had only been with them 10 months, not of the highest calibre or proven in any great sense, didn't have the highest profile.
Fans hated him.
I think most of his career was spent in the Georgian top flight. So it was palatable, wasn't it? The Pozzos didn't ruffle too many feathers by sacking
the fans were okay. Okay is an understatement. They were pretty happy.
They're on their 13th manager since 2012, but I think everyone was just why wouldn't you go and get a better manager if one became available and Munoz hadn't started the season on fire? I think they were 14th when he departed, which is a little bit unlucky for him because it was an okay start to the season. But
and the results haven't been, obviously Liverpool one, as you said, awful. Everton's not too bad. 1-0 loss to Saints, that's a game you maybe could have tried to
They've
done.
probably got the worst
1-0
squad.
to Arsenal.
Norwich have got the worst squad, surely.
I don't know, because
Norwich
could be level.
The turnover was massive. Norwich spent 60 mil, net. Well, but they sold Buendia as well.
And they've at least got, Watford have at least got a star in Sarr. I look at that Norwich side, I'm like, who's dragging him out of this game?
Yeah, who's scoring the goal?
But I mean, Watford lost Will Hughes, Chalobah, Deeney lost some big names, some mainstays in that side, and I think it was 12 players that came in. So whoever is in charge of Watford, there's an awful lot of work to do at the start of the season to make them an actual coherent unit. So I thought preparation was quite bad.
Yeah, not amazing.
But they probably got one of the best managers to get them out of the situation if possible.
Not sure.
They're going down, aren't they?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I think they will get sucked in. But enough chat about Claudio Ranieri. We could talk about Conte, but I feel like we've spoken about Conte enough on recent shows.
It's quite basic, right? It's unbelievable hiring.
Just go back and watch other Sunday Vibes if you want to see Conte ones. An interesting name I did want to talk about is not a new appointment this season, but Patrick Vieira. We haven't really spoken at any great length about Crystal Palace so far this season, despite the fact they're playing really well, specifically now, because obviously I think, was it 1 win in their first 7 games, and then they've now only lost 1 of their last 6, I think. So they're playing really nice football, and we weren't sure on Vieira. Which
is fair enough.
We weren't disrespecting him, I don't think, but we were kind of like, oh, is this going to be good or is this going to be bad? We just didn't really know, did we? A little bit Stevie G-esque. What do we think of Palace's
When I watched
side?
Palace on the first day of the season against Chelsea, and they lost 3-0, and I thought, good God, they looked rough. However, at that time, they were missing a lot of players. They had a lot of injuries, and obviously Conor Gallagher had gone on loan, who's been their star guy, to be quite honest.
He's been sensational.
Wasn't able to play against Chelsea, obviously. And so I think Vieira's done a pretty good job. Their recruitment was fantastic, and I don't know whether Vieira had a huge say in that side of things. I think it was more behind the scenes as well. But they finally went from, obviously they lost a bunch of their older guys during the season and recruited really well in these young boys. Defensively, I thought they've come along pretty good. I don't know whether that is due to the players they've signed.
You've got the third best defence in the league by the underlying numbers. Only City
Anderson.
and Chelsea have conceded more expected goals.
Yeah, and a lot of credit has to be given to Vieira there as well. Like,
Yeah.
he's being able to coach a very solid defence, and attacking wise. This is all up before Eze is even back as well. Who's going to add
I totally forgot
even
about
more to that.
I totally forgot Eze was injured.
And Odsonne Edouards came into the league and started really, really well. That's another thing. They've all the players that have joined have started really well. None of them have kind of like lagged a bit behind or had any maybe big errors. They've all been fantastic. And I think every single one of them. I think he's done a very good job considering beforehand we weren't too sure.
I think the point about recruitment was good because I think he's benefited from some really savvy work by Dougie Friedman. I'm forgetting the name of the centre half that they brought in from Fulham that was from Lyon on a permanent, Joachim Anderson. Like signing players like that who've already kind of bedded themselves into the league and impressed, and for kind of middling fees as well. Was really good. And I mean, to get Edouard for 18 mil, you know my feelings on that. And he's found a way to play him with Benteke as well, on occasion.
And Benteke's been pretty good as well this season.
I think that's been the most impressive thing of the Vieira reign. His ability to switch up how he wants to play and the personnel he's using, and in specific moments. I mean, the Man City win at the Etihad was brilliant, but then the week after, you're thinking they've got Wolves. Yeah. He's going to shortly play the same side here, and they've been so impressive against City. Why change it? Vieira goes out there and changes it, and he drops Ayew and puts Benteke in and shifts Edouard. Like that, I think is just brave to do. I really think that's really brave. And obviously, Conor Gallagher he's been one of the outstanding players in the league. I don't even think that's disrespectful. He's going at 0.8 expected goals and assists per 90 this season. It's unbelievable. And we thought it last year as well. At West Brom, he was shot in a dog side.
Yeah, you did like him last season. I didn't maybe notice him as much at West Brom, of course, but I think the blend in that midfield as well deserves, like the boys behind him deserve a lot of praise. Every time I've watched Palace, MacArthur has been brilliant. Like his defensive numbers are huge this season, and bringing Chiarte back into midfield from centre half. He's been able to do a bit more shielding, which means Conor Gallagher, who plays mostly on the right, does all his good work down the right, doesn't he? Can be a little bit more like forward thinking. His defensive numbers not massive. Like his pressures pretty up there. Ayew's pressure's pretty up. So they've got a nice coherent press. He's modernised him in a really like nice, simple and effective way. But he's already laid some of the praise at Roy Hodgson's feet, which he should, because he provided him with a great base as well. I just think Palace have just been smart the last 3 or 4 years with the way they've just nudged things forward. And like Thomas Tuchel's even taking notice now of Gallagher, isn't he? Like I saw that interview of him where he's like, oh, you don't have to watch Palace games to realise how good Gallagher is. Like every single game is the start. And I was looking at their squad today, and he's like most tackles in the squad, most distance covered, most goals. I think most assists, most key passes, most chances created. It's like
supposedly in the summer he had a conversation where he was like, "Look, am I going to be playing a lot this season?" And I think Tuchel apparently was quite honest and was like, "Look, you're not going to be the first team right now. I mean, Hakim Ziyech can't even get into the side. So if you would like to go out on loan to obviously a better club than maybe West Brom was last season, then we can maybe try and organise that. And that seems to have been, and that is what has happened. I mean, look, for a Chelsea point of view, it's a win-win situation, right? You either next season you keep him and hopefully he'd be develop into maybe a first team player, or rather than a squad or bench player, he can maybe make it to that first team.
Is there a Tomori risk here?
I don't know if it's a risk. I think Chelsea will be able to get really good money for him if we sold him, and Palace can see Palace might have the funds in the summer, or other teams might be looking around him. I don't think Chelsea will sell him. I think Chelsea might sell another attacking player and bring him into the side.
Marina Granascara will be delighted. She'll be like, I'll be able to get 25-30 mil for him, and he's gone. I can't see him being brought back into the Chelsea
side. The only
side.
thing
with the quality of that midfield,
I think Ziyech might.
Who's
move on?
Your fourth choice midfielder is on loan from Atletico Madrid.
Saul
Niguez. He's not rotten. He's had a couple of rotten games.
They're cancelling that loan in there, or is that been taken from the table? No, he's not wrong, but he started a bit wrong.
I don't know. I just bad start.
I think Chelsea may give him a chance.
But because of Gallagher, I mean, that most tackles thing surprised me. I think when I looked at his defensive contributions, maybe it was like 2 tackles, 0 interceptions or something. So it kind of balanced itself out.
I think it's him and Tyreek Mitchell on the same amount.
Tyreek Mitchell had a great season, a great start to the season. But like Gallagher seems to be evolving into more of an attacking midfielder than anything else, which is where you're so well stocked.
That's what I mean. I think in the summer there's a possibility Chelsea sell 1 or 2, which maybe means that he can come in there. Possibly.
I pitched him on we need to talk to Villa. I said when I was doing my one player, Gerrard.
Well, they were really interested in Emile Smith-Rowe, weren't they? Back last season.
Exactly.
He's not like for like, but there are similarities between them. I mean, even Gareth Southgate said he's not a million miles away from an England caller.
He's not, man. The next squad's in March. If he continues at this rate, he deserves a call.
Thoroughly impressive.
Definitely.
Thoroughly impressive.
Let's go on to the next one then. Another manager we haven't really spoken about since joining the league recently is Bruno Lage, who has started fucking well. Like, he's created a side that I actually want to. I used to hate watching Wolves, honestly. The most boring side in the league Wolves were over the last couple of seasons. But Bruno Lage's Wolves are exciting. What have we made of them?
I felt so bad for them at the beginning of the season, because after like 4 games, they still hadn't scored a goal or something like that, and they'd hit the post like 3 times.
And finishing is a problem for them.
It is a problem. Obviously, Jimenez has started to come back into the obviously from last season's injury, and he scored against Watford. I can't remember. He has scored once.
Everton and Southampton. The Southampton finish was lovely.
However, yes, they do still need to improve on that side of things as well. They're creating a lot of chances. I mean, considering last season one of their biggest kind of outlet in attack was using Adama Traore, and now at times they can't even get into this side with Bruno Lage.
It's been dropped.
So it's been a big change up, and I think
Bruno Lage is like one of those shots better go in.
Yeah, exactly. You've
He's put up as many expected goals this season, Adama Traore, as he did across the entirety of last season. Yeah. And he can't. He's now been dropped, and he's being utilised like he was brought on recently as a wing back. And I think there is a bit of like.
He has been used as a wing back before, though.
I think there is a bit of
reservation,
like especially in the loss to Palace when he came on as the wing back. It was kind of like, well, if he can't get in this side, we're really struggling to get up the pitch. Like, why is he coming on as a wing back? Like, I think, and there's also the contractual situation going on behind the scenes.
But I mean, the signing of Hwang was a really good signing in the summer. I mean, considering I don't think he even scored at Salzburg at Leipzig the season before, I think. And so to come on now, and obviously he's their top goal scorer with 4 goals. He's been very impressive, and it was a loan, right? I'm pretty sure it's a loan,
but I think they do have the option
they're going to try and make it maybe even
almost
in January.
Definitely.
Because
they need goals. Well. They need goals. Last season they scored 36 goals in 38 games. I think it's the 4th worst in the league, or 5th worst in the league.
Who's the youngster they bought last
Fabio
season?
Silva.
He had so much pressure on him last year, just at such a young age, and obviously had just come to the Premier League, and he is talented. And hopefully over the next couple of years we'll see him grow. But it was way too much pressure too soon to lead that.
We've got down here their conversion rate is 28%. So they do need goals. But their existing personnel just need to stop being shit in front of goal as well.
5th in the league or 6th in the league by expected goals. So.
Yeah. What I would say about Bruno Lage is clearly he's a very good hands-on coach because you can't transform those underlying numbers and the style of play in the way that he did without being very good on the training pitch. Arguably more so than anyone we've discussed. He's made a complete flip their tactics on their head, and that's very evident when they play. Are a little bit unfortunate, but also need a defender. Need a couple more defenders. That is an aging back line, and the AFCON is coming up, and a couple of their players are going to be missing.
They've got 5 centre backs. No, they'll lose Willy Bolly and they'll lose Roman Saiz. They've got 5 centre backs. So they've got Max Kilman, who started the season brilliantly, by the way. Connor Cody. They've got Bolly, Saiz, and who's the lad they signed this time? Mascara. Now Mascara's torn his hamstring, so he's out until the new year, probably January at the earliest. If they lose Bolly and Saiz, that African Cup of Nations, we've already seen the dates laid out. It's our worst case scenario, you're potentially losing these players for 5 or 6 Premier League games and 2 FA Cup games, so 7 or 8 matches, leaving them with 2 centre backs. And they sometimes shifted into a back 3. I know that Dendoncker can play in there as well, but fucking hell, they got to sign a centre back.
They clearly identified that in the summer as well because they tried to sign Sven Botman, which is exactly the sort of move they should be making. And if they can, Lille are not playing well at the start of this season. We discussed them on the podcast. If they have one bad season, the value that Christophe Galtier drove up, when he won that title of those players is going to start to drop. So they might be a little bit more tempted to sell again. So maybe go back in for Botman in January, but there's going to be a few suitors, isn't there?
They wanted Chileta Sarr as well. They want Chileta Sarr apparently, And I think the sort of options they're looking at is like Milenkovic, Is that his name?
What, from Fiorentina?
Yeah. Chaleta Sarr and Botman are like the 3 golden targets. But I think in January, they're all pretty unrealistic. I think it might end up just being a case of like a Willian Jose style when they brought him in at centre-back. They brought him in up front, signing a centre-back of a similar sort of mould.
Is there any centre-halves we can think of in like the bottom 10 or top?
It's a difficult place to find. I mean, my first thought here in this is, could you get Joe Gomez on loan? Like, I think it's punchy, but Joe Gomez hasn't started a single Premier League game this season. Yeah. He is the 4th choice centre-back now at Liverpool. And that's partly down to injuries, and it's not an easy situation because we all know he's a fantastic player, but there's a World Cup in 12 months' time now. Is he going to be willing to sit out another 6 months of football? Because if that happens, I don't see Joe Gomez potentially going to the World Cup.
He's not even getting called up for the squad today.
Well, no, he won't because he's not playing. He's just like, no Premier League starts is not what you're expecting from the man who delivered a Premier League title alongside Virgil van Dijk. Like, Matip is just the guy now, isn't he? When he's fit, he's the guy. And they signed £37 million centre-back in the summer, so it's probably not possible, but I would love to see a punchy move like that.
Maybe Davinson Sanchez is more realistic. Does he even start
Does he get a game
started
using
Jaffet Tanganga maybe?
Yeah,
Tanganga also, yeah.
They were quite well stocked with Romero coming in, weren't they? But
yeah, it's a difficult place to fill. We'll just briefly touch on a couple of other ones then.
Yeah.
Rafa Benitez, don't really need to speak about him too much.
Only one win in his last 8 games, though.
Yeah,
he could be
I think he's in trouble. I really think he's in trouble.
They shouldn't sack him, but with his next 5 games.
Yeah, City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Palace, and I think Brentford as well is the 6th. That's a tough run,
He's been really unfortunate with Dominic Calvert. Like, I am not a big fan of Rondon. I think majority of people aren't. And the drop-off from Calvert-Lewin, who is
But then the reticence to play Richarlison through the middle at times. Like, when he's bringing Richarlison off the...
Right, what they should do is buy Perez from Leicester. Like, I will ferry him from Leicester.
They've got no money, mate.
To Merseyside. Well, Leicester should give them Perez.
FFP's
get that Perez Rondon dynamic firing again. Like, honestly, back in the day.
Like, I was looking at their results. Their only win since September the 13th, bearing in mind we're midway through November at this stage, was against Norwich.
Yeah. They need Calvert-Lewin back.
There's been a few really damning games in there, haven't they? The 5-2 defeat to Watford we spoke about, knocked out by QPR in the cup.
And then, like, these
they lost
fixtures.
2-1 to someone recently as well. The first half was dreadful.
These, like, 5 of the next 6 fixtures are seriously tough games as well.
Might be able to do something against Arsenal, possibly.
I'm telling you now that a thumping by Liverpool for Benitez, that could be
at Anfield.
No Everton manager in the modern era has a good record against Liverpool.
I'll tell you, this is my image. Is 4-0 down to Liverpool, the whole stadium singing Rafa Benitez's name.
At Goodison Park.
Is that at Goodison? That's at Anfield, isn't it? No, I mean, if it's at Anfield, all of the Liverpool crowd singing Rafa Benitez's name as a Rafa, I can see that being a really good
bless him.
Rafa Benitez.
He's so nice.
But the thing that might play in his favour there is he does like playing on the counter. Like, had some decent results against bigger sides at the start of the season. Yeah. So, like, maybe he won't fear the bigger sides as much.
But he should, because he needs Calvert-Lewin back fit urgently. Very quickly then, they haven't been confirmed, but I thought it's worth touching on the 2 leading candidates for Norwich City, because it is the only vacant role at the moment in the Premier League, and that's Frank Lampard and Dean Smith.
If I'm Norwich, I'd be going for Dean Smith.
This is
for sure. Don't get me wrong. Like,
would you take
I do rate Frank.
Dean Smith?
I do rate. Oh no, this thing. Yeah, I don't know whether Dean would take Dean Smith would take it. I mean, apparently it seems to be edging towards Frank Lampard more so. But I mean, Frank Lampard at all of his jobs has had obviously I love him a bit. I really do. But he's had a lot of talented players at his disposal. Even at Derby, right? He brought in a bunch of loans.
Tomori, Mason Mount.
Really good. Harvey Wilson, who's now at I think Bournemouth. And was able to use them really well. Like the Norwich squads.
The thing is, it's just destined for the drop, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I don't see any manager. You could stick Guardiola, Klopp, Tuchel in the dugout for 6 months. I still think they go down.
I quite like Stuart Webber, their sporting director, but the squad they've assembled, like the turnover and the amount of new players they've got, like it just doesn't seem like they were like doomed from the start. I want to say,
like Rashika and Josh Sargent have just not worked.
Well,
and they were the rescue package for Buendia, weren't they?
Well, half the issue as well, right, is Frank Lampard at Derby and at Chelsea would spend. He didn't do the coaching. It was Jody Morris and Joe Edwards. And supposedly he's not getting. Jody Morris has left the camp now. He wants to be a first team manager.
Right. Okay.
And Joe Edwards, he said wherever he does go, he's going to take him. He's going to try and bring him with him next. And so, like, if you're losing half of the team,
similar thing for Dean Smith though. Dean Smith's lost Richard O'Kelly recently, 2 days before the season started, who's been his assistant for a decade. I don't know whether he can convince him to come back or how bad that split was, whether it was acrimonious or not. And he also lost John Terry, who was a vital one-to-one coach in that Villa setup. So,
I mean, what other options are there out there that you prefer to Frank Lampard or Dean Smith?
I think what you've got to accept is whoever comes in. I think whoever. You've just got to accept really. It's so harsh, but it's like you've got to be planning for your first season in the Championship with this guy in mind. And if you think Frank Lampard is the guy to get you out of the Championship at first go, like.
But then they must think that
they can't just accept relegation.
No, they must think this is a salvable situation. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sacked Farke because Farke is prolific in the Championship. Like,
yeah, true. You're right.
He lost. He won 2 titles and only lost 13 games in 2 seasons.
But
in the
how do you
Championship.
convince the manager to come? How do you convince a manager that's going to keep you in the league to come?
I think that surely they'd be going for Dean Smith. I can't see the rationale behind Lampard. If Lampard happens, I think that's thick. I think it's dumb.
Because also Dean Smith has done it. Remember Aston Villa 2 seasons ago?
He's done it with a much better squad than we're looking at now. Like he had Jack Grealish.
He had Jack Grealish. Because what's happened?
And they stayed up from a goal that Todd Cantwell had a huge falling out, I think, with Daniel Farke behind the scenes and was training with the under-23s.
Who's that? Sorry,
Todd Cantwell.
Todd Cantwell. Right.
Jeez. I think he's back in the setup now, but
I hope so.
I think Dean Smith. It would be a mistake, in my opinion, for Dean Smith to take that role. But then having said that,
what role is? I mean,
what role would he take?
I mean, it depends because it's very quick after a match. If you take 6 months out, who knows?
Yeah, but then you end up as a Chris Wilder and he's managing Middlesbrough now. Like, no offence to Middlesbrough, but it's a Championship job. It is a Championship job. Like Dean Smith,
I think
at least it's a Prem job. At least it's a Prem job. Yeah, he does. You're probably right. But let's not forget Wilder was on a real high at one stage, and Dean Smith, like Wilder, was on a real high at one stage. I think at least it's a Prem job. So I agree with you. I'd go Dean Smith over Lampard.
Yeah.
I mean, I would as well.
It's difficult for them to attract foreign coaches as well because like no foreign coach wants to live in East Anglia and it's a beautiful part of the world, but like it's not London, is it? Or it's not well connected to London.
I'm surprised though that Stuart Webber hasn't dug out another Farke, like another Borussia Dortmund D team
Thomas
coach or something. Do you know what I mean? Well,
the big one at the moment is Valery Ishmael at West Brom, but he's obviously flying with them. And
he also plays the grossest football ever.
And, well, I think that was needs must at Barnsley.
No, but he's playing that now.
Yeah.
He's playing it now. Honestly, I can't remember. One of my friends who supports him was just like, honestly,
Jose Bordalas football.
It's unwatchable, but it's getting the job done. I mean, fair enough, and that might be a necessity at Norwich, mightn't it? Anything to stay.
I'm trying to think like who's been sacked abroad. Eusebio Di Francesco's been sacked again. That was by Verona. Paco Lopez been sacked by Levante. But like none of these guys are guys you know like Jan Suet who Huddersfield went to. They tried the whole like Daniel Farke route. I think that might put some people off going down that route as well.
I still remember that when they panned in the crowd to that random guy, and it was just are you? And he was like, nah. He was just a bloke watching the game. Let's do some quick fire questions then, because I'm aware we've been speaking for a while. Sambi Dance says, which teams have surprised you so far this season? I.e., Sociedad, Freiburg, Len.
Palace, probably for me. Palace are up there. Done just because we didn't really know much beforehand, and it was obviously so many new boys coming in. But we've spoken about them.
Milan,
so we won't go into them. AC Milan have been.
I mean, not that surprising, is it? But they are just so
continuation and I'm surprised the Pioli bubble's still not burst. He's just done such a great job there. I, to my great shame, have not watched a lot of Real Sociedad, Freiburg, or Lens this season. To be honest,
I haven't either. I have watched a couple of Sociedad highlights packages, and obviously they're playing well, but I couldn't talk enough in depth. I tell you what, you should go and watch more Continental Club and EFD, and they'll be able to give you much more detail on those three sides. Nosy Junior, I thought this was quite a funny one. What do West Ham need to do in January to sustain a potential title challenge? The bravery. Sustain it. Well, we're in it.
There you go. No, why not? Backup striker, like Antonio's great. However, Antonio's injury record is always going to be worrying. One injury to him.
Just go and get Lingard. You could get him for $5 million now for United. United have
$5 million.
United have had a howler there.
Driven his value.
Honestly, United have driven his value into the ground. Should have sold him in the summer. Well, we're going to lose him in 5 months' time. So is it for free or $5 million? What do you want?
It's a good point, actually. It's a very
United have played that in the Pogba situation so
West Ham
badly.
Do we see any holes in their squad? Like,
I think they need a centre back as well.
Yeah, it's easy.
With the Angelo Ogbonna ACL.
Ogbonna getting injured is huge. To be fair, Dawson is
Zuma
getting
and
on as
Diop.
well, age-wise. His stock has absolutely fallen.
The three ahead of him are playing like absolute beasts, isn't they? Like Craig Dawson was a right top, and David Moyes has got him playing like Bonucci.
Diop's first season, the Prem was good, and then after that, he's just absolutely fallen.
I'm really annoyed that Mohamed Samakin has gone to Leipzig and he's playing really well, because like for every Sunday vibes last year when someone needed centre off, I was just like Samakin at Strasbourg banging.
I'm just thinking everyone with James Tarkowski.
Right, fair.
Sign Tarkowski. He is out of contract. Get him, because it would be again an upgrade for West Ham. Oliver Boyson says, is Joao Cancelo the best all-round fullback in the world?
I don't think you can say this yet.
No.
We're not going to say anything because we did Team Talk, and this is one of
the
the
reason
moments.
I put it in for the plug.
Yes, there you go. So Team Talk will be out.
Yeah, Saturday.
Yesterday. So check that out. We had a good argument.
Put a little excerpt in right now.
Cancelo's got to be second. He can play on both sides and be one of the best in the league.
Reece James can play right back.
I don't need to say any more.
Reece James play right back, left back, and centre mid.
When's Reece James played left back?
Yeah, but he could do. Absolutely fine.
Well, hypothetically, yeah.
Hold on,
you can
you think Reece James is more like tactically versatile than Cancelo?
Yes.
Wow, that is a phenomenal.
Borderline deducting a point.
Sorry, what do you mean?
No, I think Duke's point is really strong here.
He played central midfield for half a season.
I think
he's probably been the best left back in the league this year.
I think Duke's has actually sprung me.
What's happening?
I think he's right in terms of Cancelo second, James third, and then obviously Walker. Nothing against Kyle Walker. I think he's been fantastic.
But why? Because he can play the other flank when Reece James can play central midfield.
All right then, so make sure you check that out if you haven't already. That was live on the channel yesterday. One more quick fire then. This one, I guess you should answer this one, Jalab. Kiswara says, thoughts on Antonio Rudiger getting closer to leaving Chelsea on a free?
Ooh, yeah, rough. Because I think if there's one player that has had the best renaissance under Tuchel, it's Antonio Rudiger. They said Conte. He's absolutely leveled up. He thrives under this formation. He's probably playing his best football of his career at the moment. He's enjoying it loads. Like he's using the situation well. Like he wants to try and get as much money as possible. And if that is elsewhere, and he gets a move, like I'm pretty sure he'd be fine moving to Bayern Munich or looking into. Like he'd be absolutely fine going back.
I've got images of Bayern next season. It has to be said.
Look, I think Chelsea...
Especially if Luka Hernandez is getting arrested.
Yeah, if Jesus, yeah. The issue at the moment, I think, for Chelsea is like they don't want to break their wage structure.
Yeah.
Like, they've already got Romelu Lukaku, who's now the highest paid. Like, do they then make Rudiger the highest paid? Who's then... Because also, how many years...
And also, you have got other contractual centre-back issues with Andreas Christensen, Thiago Silva.
Everyone needs to get signed a new deal. Thiago Silva, if they want to extend that. Rudiger, Rudiger, Azpilicueta's into his final year. Christensen's into his final year. Supposedly that one is close to being done. So yeah, but the way I would put it, right now, if you told me, would I give him a new deal? And sure, 100% would. But if you were breaking your wage structure, you could probably go out and get a centre back.
What's the buyback on Tomori?
I don't think there is a buyback on Tomori.
Yeah, I don't think there is.
I mean, given you've got 4 centre-backs out of contract in the summer and Tomori has been allowed to leave for 28 million, it's just mind-blowing to me.
But I don't know whether Tomori would quite do the same as Rudiger on that flank. Like Rudiger for a right-footed centre-back to play on the left centre-back.
I agree, but you could be losing Azpilicueta as well on the right side.
Sure, I mean, I think Aspie would probably get a new deal.
You can have Anthony Ralston for 40 million.
I mean,
nice guy though. Nice guy.
Lovely guy.
I think that's an issue. I think that's a developing issue.
Mate. It's a huge issue, and I think it might be an issue that actually does result in him leaving. I hope he doesn't. I think he's fantastic, and he's probably the best in that position right now in the world. But yeah, I think Chelsea would probably stand their ground and probably not give him the wages that he wants.
And Granit Xhaka doesn't get backed into a corner by anyone, does she? So
exactly.
I back her 100%. All right, then we're going to do some very quick shout-outs. You guys have been leaving your comments on the listicles and transfer talks all week. Starting with Swagato Sarkar, who says, I think Newcastle are going to sign Ramsey for free in January.
Free?
Yeah, because I think Juventus are going to chop that contract up, aren't they, and pay him up. He's got 6 months left.
Like 300k,
He's got 6 months left, and I think they're going to chop it up.
It's not a bad shout. I mean,
black and white for black and
Newcastle
white.
Newcastle would laugh for it, mate.
Yeah, I mean, does he start over Willock though? So that's the real question, isn't it? That's the real quiz.
Connor
Comps HD says, at Arsenal, we love Xhaka. We get annoyed with him sometimes, but we support him and value him. What a misleading thumbnail. Now, this was in relation to 10 players hated by their fans.
Well, I mean, say that to the fans that booed him off the pitch.
I was about to say the same thing. AbsoluteFlipFlop.com here, Arsenal fans, booing him off the pitch, wanting him like chucked out of the club. Now, we love him. Do your bollocks. you honestly,
he's a
absolute U-turns all over the place. More U-turns than the Tory government. Here, Bernian as the last one, who says, I love covering myself in salt and vinegar and pretending I'm a crisp. I just put that in because it had 160 likes and I don't really understand why.
Love it. I love it, mate.
Yeah.
You know what Football Daily fans do?
I think that was...
When Zach was talking about Rudiger, that's all I could think about because I read that top comment.
Yeah, I don't know why it had 160 likes. If somebody can fill us in, then please.
What's your flavour of crisp? What's your flavour of crisp to go to?
Cheese and onion. I mean, ideally, I'd like a sensation. Like the Thai chili sensation.
No, I'm saying like a Walker, you know, like the traditional...
Walkers, then cheese and onion.
Cheese and onion for you?
Yeah, probably cheese and onion.
I'm probably a smoky bacon or a prawn cocktail. I do enjoy.
I think I've had this chat with someone before. I think
it
might have been. Is it you that likes prawn cocktails?
Get that in your mouth. Honestly, get that in your mouth if you're having prawn cocktail, you freak. All right, so that's it for another episode of Sunday Vibes. Team Talk was out yesterday, right?
Indeed, that's the only thing you're going to get told to watch.
Zach thinks Reece James is better than Cancelo.
Oh my God!
No, it wasn't. No.
Go and watch that.
The question is different.
No.
It's not who's the best.
Go and watch Reece James.
Oh
my God! What?
It was based on ability.
It was based on ability. Wow!
It was based on ability.
Absolutely buzzing to watch that. And also, just a quick reminder: this episode is sponsored by Manscaped. So go to manscaped.com. Use the code FootballDaily20 and get all of this good stuff, 20% off.
It supports us, lads. That's what it is.
Free shipping, all that sort of stuff.
Unless you eat prawn cocktail crisps, then just
Chav's going to go and drink this.
Go away.
All right, don't drink this because that's probably a hazard. I'm not saying anybody at home to drink this, but you should buy the product. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. See you later. Bye.